Wrestling Twitter has become the most dangerous place in the entire sport. More dangerous than a Kenny Omega bump, more dangerous than a Will Ospreay match. And you don't even have to take a chair shot to the head to get hurt. In the last 5 years, a growing list of wrestlers have been driven off the platform entirely. Some left by choice, others left by chase. Today, we're going to talk about everybody who was bullied off the Bird app, who's most likely to endure this punishment, and what wrestlers had enough foresight to bully themselves off Twitter. Subscribe in Swahili. Twitter has become the premier war zone in online discourse, and pro wrestling is no exception. It seems like every week a different wrestler locks, freezes, or deactivates their account for a myriad of reasons, ranging from fan abuse to botching moves. Some wrestlers were wise enough to see the writing on the wall before their number was even called. Jade Cargill recognized she was spending way too much time on Twitter and temporarily stepped away on her own terms. This was also the case with Daniel Garcia. Mick Foley publicly stated that he finds social media divisive and deactivated his account. Jon Moxley has gone on record in saying he does not want the noise of social media in general, and Eddie Kingston acted on principle when he stepped away from Twitter in solidarity with another popular wrestler who was victimized by the Elon app. More on that later. In most cases, a divorce from Twitter doubles as an indictment on pro wrestling's toxic fan base. A fan base so toxic, they threw a toxic tantrum when Triple H himself told them to take wrestling less seriously. If Triple H cared about Twitter, he would have deactivated his account based on that backlash alone. But after screwing up fake wrestling moves, a handful of wrestlers had to find out the hard way that some fans really do take this fake sport too seriously. Wrestling Twitter fancies itself a referee. More accurately, law enforcement, because it's a whole lot of Botch Police online. The Young Bucks learned just that in one of the first major controversies in AEW's young history. In December of 2019, the show-ending Dark Order segment on AEW Dynamite had a minion throwing phantom punches. The punches were terrible, especially when slowed down to show that the minion was swinging and missing more than both minion spin-offs. The internet lost its mind. Matt and Nick Jackson deactivated, citing the platform's toxicity. Matthew Lee Massey, which what a Confederate name, but anyway, Matthew Lee Massey, the Young Bucks' father, said their absence wasn't permanent, but that the criticism and meanness on the platform was just too much to take. This was also the moment that AEW's honeymoon period officially ended. The backlash wasn't just about punches, it was about the first real crack in fan goodwill. Fan goodwill in pro wrestling is about as reliable as a defective ladder. And in WWE's most famous ladder match stipulation, one female wrestler came under fire for safety issues. In July 2022, Shotzi Blackheart was heavily criticized by internet edgelords for mistakes she made during that year's Women's Money in the Bank match. Shotzi didn't go down swinging. She responded, quote, "There are 3 things I care about at the end of a match. Is everyone safe? Did everyone have fun? Did the crowd react? Nobody got hurt," end quote. This was enough to trigger digital referees who take a fake sport too seriously for their own good. It was also enough for Shotzi to deactivate her account, but as you'll see throughout this video, victims of cyberbullying are often gluttons for punishment. Shotzi returned to Twitter shortly thereafter, only to deactivate her account again 1 month later after accusing Liv Morgan of getting Ruby Riott fired from WWE. Shotzi's claims were enough to trigger wrestling fans to reportedly tell her to kill herself. Shotzi was not the first wrestler to get bullied over screwing up moves, and sadly, she won't be the last. In February of this year, popular AEW star Harley Cameron deactivated her account after being blamed online for Penelope Ford's injury during a botched spot on Dynamite. Fans accused Harley of failing to catch Ford, which resulted in Ford suffering an ankle injury. The harassment was immediate and severe. Classic pattern. The audience appoints itself in-ring agent and punishes accordingly. Nia Jax is all too familiar with this pattern. Nia has a very long history of accusations for being unsafe. Jax does not try to hurt her opponents, but at the same time, her many controversies with injuring other wrestlers should be subject to accountability. But fan abuse is not accountability. In December of 2024, Nia quit Twitter following her performance at Survivor Series. The criticism of her in-ring work was relentless enough that she deactivated immediately after the event. Jax has spoken publicly about online hate before, but Survivor Series 2024 was apparently the breaking point. But cyberbullying in pro wrestling is not limited to safety issues. Sometimes a wrestler can get bullied off Twitter for simply having an opinion. A wrestler posts a take, and Twitter makes them pay for it. Chelsea Green posted a tribute to Hulk Hogan following his death. What she got back? Death threats. There were accounts threatening to send Chelsea to the grave with Terry. She deleted the tribute post, posted an apology, and then deactivated entirely rather than continue the back and forth. Chelsea returned to the platform, of course, and almost a year to the day of her Hulk Hogan controversy, another Twitter spat resulted in her second abrupt departure. After Green was falsely accused of being MAGA, she clarified her political stance. Green, a Canadian citizen who cannot vote in American elections, denounced any involvement with MAGA and even went a step further, saying that if she could vote, she wouldn't be voting for President PDF File. Quote, "I am a Canadian citizen. I can't vote in America. I am not MAGA. I am a liberal/Democrat. When I become a citizen, I will vote for a president who believes in equal human rights," end quote. Green called out misguided fans before deactivating again. Chelsea is now one of 2 wrestlers on this list to have been bullied off Twitter twice. That's its own story. And while women are the most prone to social media abuse, an actor and independent wrestler recently left Twitter around the same time Chelsea did. Paul Walter Hauser recently went off on a public tirade defending NXT's Mason Rook. Days earlier, Hauser had previously shamed Roman Reigns for attending the UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House that Tony Khan would have definitely attended if UFC wasn't in bed with his competition. Hauser went as far as to disrespect Hall of Famer Nick Bockwinkel, leading to a feud with Jim Cornette. "My children and their generation will never know or care who Nick Bockwinkel is or was. Doesn't diminish his legacy or talent or what he gave. It's just the truth, Jimmy. The coming generation will likely watch and enjoy Mason Rook and Jackson Drake. Boo-hoo." Cornette responded as only he could. "Rook won't be around long enough for a housefly's generation to enjoy. The problem is idiots in the business who are marks for showbiz assholes, who are marks for wrestling, letting them play in our profession and making them believe they should have opinions. See Hauser, dumbass!" The backlash was swift. Hauser deactivated within days. Between inflaming the cult of Cornette and the Roman Reigns hive, Paul Hauser, who was a friend of the show by the way, did not stand a chance. Men getting bullied off Twitter is rare in wrestling. In fact, in many cases, when a man does do something worthy of criticism, it's his wife who gets the brunt of the blame anyway. Sometimes you don't have to do anything wrong. You just have to be adjacent to a man who did. Ty Conti was bullied off Twitter in 2021 after Sammy Guevara announced the end of his engagement. Sammy had previously proposed to his long-term girlfriend in an AEW ring, but after calling off the engagement, he began dating fellow wrestler Ty Conti, whom he had developed a friendship with as documented on his vlog. Fans immediately decided Ty was the reason Sammy broke up with his ex. Ty deactivated her account the same day Guevara posted the statement. Her management had to issue a formal statement of their own about the harassment. The worst part? Nothing was confirmed. All the LinkedIn lawyers on Twitter prosecuted her on an assumption. Alexa Bliss suffered a similar fate for somebody she wasn't even dating. During the pandemic, Alexa's ex, Buddy Murphy, was booked in a controversial storyline with a very young Aaliyah Mysterio. The significantly older Buddy Murphy was involved in a storyline romance with Aaliyah, and the two would even go on to share a kiss. In response to the angle, Alexa Bliss playfully tweeted, "Honestly, I don't blame him, LOL. Hashtag shoot your shot, bud." Despite the fact that most online wrestling fans look like predators, these same fans revolted, probably out of projection. Alexa addressed the backlash head on, getting attacked for writing about a show y'all are watching anyway. Bliss went on to lock down her account before returning to Twitter full-time, where she'll be a candidate as a likely multiple-time bully victim, much like the daughter of the most famous living wrestler on the planet. Simone Garcia received death threats after The Rock crashed the WrestleMania main event in 2024. The fervent We Want Cody movement was a fan-led revolt after The Rock cut the line and tried to replace Royal Rumble winner Cody Rhodes in the WrestleMania 40 main event. This was another example of a female wrestler getting skewered online for the actions of a male who's close to her. At the time, the video of The Rock's return was the most disliked YouTube video of all time. The backlash spread to The Rock's entire bloodline, including Simone, better known as NXT GM Ava Raine. The Rock himself addressed the threats, calling them crazy. Ava returned to Twitter, and after resigning from NXT, she was free to express herself politically, something that has never resulted in any Twitter controversy whatsoever. But seriously, Ava's first tweet after quitting WWE read, "And now that I can say this with my full chest, fuck ICE and that entire administration. Let's go!" Ava deactivated her account for a second time due to the political backlash from everybody's drunk and obtuse uncle, and she hasn't come back since. Twitter has a long history of animosity toward the NOI family, from Nia Jax to The Rock to Jey Uso. But when it was time for the trolls to come for Jimmy Uso, they chose to attack his wife. In July of 2021, Jimmy Uso got a second DUI, or as I like to call it, the Tiger Woods special. Instead of spewing their sanctimonious talk at Jimmy, fans went after his wife Naomi by sending abuse, blaming her for his choices, treating her like she held the keys at night. Naomi deactivated after WWE superstars began publicly rallying around her for support. This was a symptom of a much bigger problem in wrestling. Because while women are popular targets from frustrated wrestling fans who are chronically online, nobody gets it worse than black women. There is a documented pattern of online abuse toward black women in wrestling, and it cannot be ignored. These are 4 separate incidents across 4 years that all involved black women and all resulted in deactivation. In 2020, Brandy Rhodes deactivated her Twitter account after being subject to, quote, "an absurd amount of N-bombs." Cody Rhodes' words, and mine. The trigger was backlash over the AEW Heels initiative, but the weapon the trolls chose was explicitly racial. She didn't leave over a wrestling opinion. She didn't even leave over a wrestling move. She left because wrestling Twitter chose to be racist. Mia Yim deactivated Twitter after posting a pic with Austin Theory, where the former Knockouts champion was harmlessly straddling Theory. Mia famously married Keith Lee in 2022, and as a result, fans lashed out with accusations of Mia Yim disrespecting and even cheating on her spouse. What's interesting is fans came to the defense of Keith Lee for something that his wife did, but no such defense existed with Naomi for something her husband did. The targeting of Naomi for her husband's behavior fits a specific pattern: black women being held accountable for the actions of the men in their lives whose own actions are conveniently overlooked by wrestling fans. But the actions of a forgotten NXT star ended her career and triggered one of the most dangerous wrestling hives in the business today. In 2022, Amari Miller made controversial statements about Sasha Banks' ethnicity, suggesting Banks wasn't black because she's of mixed race. Banks' mother is of German descent. If you know anything about the Sasha Banks hive, they are a united front and they don't fuck around. Along came the outrage, to which Miller apologized and deactivated. Nobody deserves to be cyberbullied. Well, most people don't. But in this case, Miller's own tweets were the flashpoint, not just her existence on the platform. Amari went looking for problems with the Sasha Banks bee's nest and she got stung. But her deactivation was still driven by the pile-on. After being released in 2024, Amari left the business altogether but has not ruled out an in-ring return. Amari Miller would probably push back against Sol Ruca's ethnicity, but Sol is a proud black woman with black heritage, and she was treated like a black woman by wrestling fans after a botched spot that wasn't even her fault. During a recent international tour, Sol missed a springboard crossbody where she instead landed on Liv Morgan's ankle. Liv was believed to be injured at the time, leading to a furious mob of incels attacking Sol Ruca, who privated and then deactivated her X account. The abuse came almost entirely from Liv Morgan's fanbase, which, if you'll remember, got Shotzi to quit Twitter a second time. It was later confirmed that the botch was not Sol Ruca's fault. The mob got it wrong, but Sol still paid the price. For those counting at home, that's 4 black women, 4 different incidents, 4 deactivations. Wrestling Twitter didn't need a reason. It needed a target. No wonder Jade Cargill preemptively quit Twitter for a while. She said, "Y'all crackers ain't tanking this timeline." The IWC is an extension of the useless wrestling media and people like Dave Meltzer, who does not give a shit about black women. But despite all the ugliness on Twitter directed at these queens, Dave, notorious for his Japanese wrestling fetish, instead chooses to focus on the horrible bullying directed toward Japanese star Riho. Riho deactivated her account due to sustained fan abuse. The reasons circulating online were inconsistent. She was being harassed for what appears to have been advertised appearances and general toxicity. She later made her first public comments through her other platforms. The real story here is Eddie Kingston, who voluntarily quit Twitter specifically in response to the bullying Riho was receiving. He posted on Instagram to confirm it. Eddie's a real one for this because he brought more awareness to the growing epidemic of online abuse in women's wrestling. Eddie is one of the few examples of a wrestler taking a public stand in someone else's defense. Despite his best efforts, the awareness campaign fell on deaf ears because AEW's Saraya deactivated her account in 2024 after leaks from her Patreon surfaced. Nobody's going to learn anything from online bullying. It's just one of those things that comes with the territory, and the best way to avoid it is to quit these platforms entirely. Rhea Ripley is one of the most popular wrestlers on the planet, but in May, she publicly stated that she's been considering deleting Twitter due to constant negativity. She hasn't left just yet, but we've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. I started this video talking about how Mick Foley took a moral stand against Twitter, which was probably a good idea because of the backlash he's currently receiving for quitting WWE over Trump, only to turn around and sign with the Trump-adjacent AEW. For more on that story, check out this video.